Let's make lots of notes and then. Hello, everyone. We are live. There's the puppy is not sleeping. The puppy is awake and keeps grabbing at my hand every time it moves because she thinks we're playing a game.
Oh,
She started biting on the headphones, thinking that was a game, and then I was just moving my hands around, and she's like a little cat, kind of, except obviously much better than a cat. This is Adelita for everyone who didn't meet her last week. This is my new intro to the weekly live streams. It's talking about the dog.
I'm here, Adelita.
The new edition, Adelita. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Where Are All the Women? Here we are. Or, no, we don't know. Never mind. We have no idea where all the women are. Where could they be? Hi, Megan. Megan without an H is here in the comments. Thank you for joining us, Megan. I am also Megan Murphy, and I am here with Isabella Malbin. Mary Lou is not with us this week because I think she's swimming with manatees in Florida or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, keeping her toes warm. How cold is it where you are, Isabella? Is it cold?
Oh my gosh. It was like the lowest it got this week was like 17.
Oh, what's 17 in Celsius? Do you know? I don't know. I never know.
I think it's like plus 35. Is it plus 35? Yeah,
35. I need to figure this out. I get so confused about what Fahrenheit is in Celsius. Okay, it's -8. That's cold.
Oh, whoops!
Are you in Austin?
Wrong direction. Yeah, Austin is very cold.
Okay.
Yeah, Austin
is that normal?
No.
Winter?
We had a freeze in 2021. Was it 2020? Yeah, 2021, where the city just completely shut down. Like the city was not ready for the grid, just couldn't handle it, and like the roads were totally iced over, and the infrastructure of the city doesn't have the wherewithal to like prevent the freeze. Like they don't like put salt everywhere like you do in like a place like New York. So many people were out of power for days. Some people were out of power for like weeks. Nothing like that happened this time. But we were definitely like on warning to like conserve energy and let the water drip overnight so the pipes didn't freeze. But yeah, this happens maybe once a year, every other year.
-8 is cold. Like even like Vancouver, in as far as Canada goes, Vancouver does not get very cold. Like it'll get to like 0, but it usually doesn't go very far under 0. And I'm told that even in Vancouver, it was like -18. Again, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but that's like crazy. Like I've never experienced that in my entire life, and I lived in Vancouver for my entire life. And then in places like Kelowna, which are sort of more, it's more normal for it to get colder in places like Kelowna, and it was like -23. Catherine, who's in the comments and is in Canada, I don't know where in Canada, she says it's -33. Like, what the fuck is -33?
No, thank you. No, I mean, I did not sign up for this. Like,
no.
I moved to Texas to be in a free sauna. I did not sign up for this.
No, like that's probably part of the reason why you left New York. No, there's lots of other reasons too, but
100%. Now I'm like, wow, I want to know what it is in Celsius too. But tomorrow it's going to be 71 Fahrenheit here.
Okay, so things are like varying wildly.
That's a huge shift.
Okay. Well, that's good, I guess. At least it's weird. Well, must be climate change. We'll have to get those EVs.
No more cow farts.
More cow farts. Warm up the planet. More beef. More big trucks, more beef.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I can't remember what else causes climate change.
Women having too many babies.
Guns. Right? Gun rights. That
blame the
causes
women.
Climate change. Yeah, too many babies. Okay, So yeah, here we are. It's awesome where I am in Sayulita. It's like the perfect weather. It's amazing. It's cooled down here, which I was really excited about because it was so hot this summer, and it didn't really cool down until December. Usually it starts to cool down in November, and it was just like because it's like you can't open your windows or anything like that, and you have to have the AC on, and you know, it sucks having the AC on. It sucks not being able to have everything open, and like, yeah, I don't want the dogs outside even, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's cooled down here, and I've been wearing pants, which has been really exciting. Sometimes a jacket, like a few times a year I get to wear a jacket, and I'm like, which jacket should I wear? This is my one chance to put a jacket on.
Oh my gosh. If I never saw a jacket again, I'd be fine. I'm just like, no more gloves. I mean, in the 4 years that I've lived here, I've worn gloves twice. And yesterday was one of those days. So
weird. Well, I mean, that's pretty good though. You're doing pretty well. So Isabella is oh, you're not wearing your new hat. Isabella made these awesome hats, or she had them made rather. She was the mind behind the hat that she brought last week. Do you have any with you?
Yes, I'm just gonna
okay, cool.
Scooch over to reach for that.
That's okay. Yeah. And I wanted to pump those hats. I'm wearing my Don't Drink the Kool-Aid shirt, which I think is like very suitable for this week. Like as I'm gonna go on a little Taylor Swift rant, I think. Okay.
Actually, this matches your shirt, the white with the
oh, nice.
A little bit.
Is that the one you were wearing last week, or is that different?
Yes. Oh, and I flipped I don't know if y'all are seeing the mirror. I think you are.
It looks good to me. Like,
it does.
I can read it.
Perfect.
So it says make faces move again.
Okay, perfect.
I'm assuming this is also what everybody else is seeing. Oh, I love them.
And then
is there somewhere in Austin where you find good quality like merch stuff? This is something I'm always challenged by. You don't have to pump them if you don't want to, but
gosh, actually a friend of mine has a merch company, but I think he only prints, he did my bumper stickers. I have like "You Were Made by a Woman" bumper stickers, and but he doesn't do like t-shirts and hats. I believe it's like pins and stickers, like smaller scale.
Did you go buy the hats yourself and then you brought them to somebody to get them to do or did they do everything?
I had them, I like designed them and had them embroidered like industrially.
I love that one. That one's probably my favorite one, I think.
I think this is the easiest one to wear.
Yeah.
But I just love a good trucker hat. Like,
I know, I do too. I don't wear hats that often, but I really like them. Like, I put them on and I'm like, oh, cool. And then it never occurs to me to ever put it on again. And I don't sun on the beach very often, as you can probably tell. But yeah, so you guys, if you're interested in a Make Faces Move Again hat, you can get those on Isabella's website, which is whosebodyisit.com. And she has lots of other cool resources there and her master classes. And tell us a little bit more about what you're doing right now over there. I can't remember everything ever.
Oh God, what am I doing? Well, I did like 3 back-to-back. I hosted 3 back-to-back master classes in 2023. So the library is feeling pretty full at the moment. But I recently, let's see, what has been my latest offering? I did a big end of year sale for all.
Have you been doing like women's? What it was? I feel like it was like women's, like building confidence or something like that.
Oh, I have a small membership. Yes. So I started to offer group coaching again. So in 2020, I created a program called it was like an 8-week educational program for women who were like exiting liberal feminism, and I called it Liberal Feminists Anonymous, and that was a series. Yeah, it was like a recovery program of like
lib fems.
Yeah, it's like, I know porn is fucked up, but like I need the language for it, and
I don't like it, and I feel like I should. What's wrong with me? Am I not a sexy lady?
Yeah. Just like looking for the words, just like looking for the language to articulate like the intuition, or that inner knowing. And so I like just provided a container where we could kind of fill in the pieces. And then what I'm offering now is like, you could consider like the next level, which is like, okay, we know all these things are fucked. We've gone down all the rabbit holes. We've consumed a lot of media. We've listened to all the podcasts. Like, what now?
Mm-hmm.
And so I call it Become the Resolution. And yeah, in that group, we practice consciousness raising tools, learning how to speak inarguably, kind of uncovering some unconscious patterns. We did some parts therapy work. So it's a place to support one another, troubleshoot, talk about the issues that are pertinent around like the topics that I cover. So people are talking about, like women are talking about family members who have a trans identity and like what that was like at Christmas, and, anything from that to like, how do I, bring my energy back in? Like with these issues, it's so much like consumption of media and learning and, managing all the different information coming at you. And then I feel like what happened to me, and I think what's happening to women in this group as well, is that you reach like a point where you're like, okay, well, what now? Do I create something? Do I start a podcast? Do I start a committee for the parents? And so it's like the what's next.
Yeah,
So
that's often the big question from people is, okay, like I want to do something. What do I do?
Yeah. So
Megan wants to join your group. She's asking how she can do that.
Oh, okay. So you can go to my website, whosebodyisit.com, and under work with me, you'll see a drop down for group coaching. And then you'll pay and give me some information, and I'll do a little vetting, and then you'll get the link to join. And that's how it works. So yeah, every woman who joins is vetted by me. It's not like you just sign up and all of a sudden you have access to the forum and the calls. So there's some level of protection for the women, privacy for the women in that space. And yeah, we meet a minimum of 2 times a month. Each call is about 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Cool. Awesome. Isabel is also on Instagram and Twitter at Whose Body Is It? And all those links are down below in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube. And my links, of course, are down there also. And if you're watching on Twitter, you've found my Twitter account. So congratulations. And don't drink the Kool-Aid. I think this is like a timeless message. And this shirt's at Teespring, and that link is down in the show notes also. If you are tuning in just now, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It supports the channel, and then you'll get notifications and you won't miss us every week. We're here every Wednesday night. Yay! And this week, we're talking about hypnosis, among other things, which is actually something I know very little about, though I'm very curious about it. I know a lot of people who've done hypnotherapy for all sorts of stuff, from like smoking to trauma to anxiety, depression, all of those things. And I just can't stop talking about Taylor Swift. So I figure maybe I'll get that out of the way, because I feel like it related to this topic, because I do not understand the rabid fan base that Taylor Swift has. These people are called Swifties, of course. And I keep trying to figure it out, and people keep getting mad at me when I try to figure it out. Or sometimes, probably people who are a bit closer to my age and not. It's, people act like it's just teenage girls, but it's not teenage girls. It's also adult women and some adult men also. And so it can't just be written off as like, oh, it's just silly teenage girls. And I mean, I was a teenage girl once, and I never had this relationship to anything before. And I was like a huge, I loved music when I was a kid, and I would get like big crushes on whatever, like Joey from New Kids on the Block. But I also liked Bono from U2.
Mhm.
That was my generation. I must have been a full adult though, so that's always a little bit weird. But you know, also like Charlie Sheen and Michael J. Fox. So who can explain these things? But you know, like I would like write letters when I was a kid to these like boy celebrities that I loved, but I never was like that. I feel like that's a totally different thing than what's going on with Taylor Swift and her fans, and the way that they get like really angry and offended when you're like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense to me, because to me, and I understand that not everyone has the same tastes as me. I know that that's hard for people to believe, but I will acknowledge that some people like things that I do not like. And that maybe like I just don't understand it. Like I really don't like electronic music at all. None of it. I like music that has words that I can like sing along to or rap along to or whatever. But I also acknowledge that, because I know lots of people who have good taste in music and are, you know, not dum-dums who are into electronic music. So I just acknowledge that it's just something that I don't really get. It just doesn't work for me, but fine. It works for other people. That's fine. I don't think they're bad people. But this is like the way that her fans behave is like they're in some kind of cult, or like they're on drugs. Sorry, there's a loud motorcycle outside. I don't know if you can hear that. And it doesn't, like, she to me is so boring in every single possible way. Like, I think her lyrics are boring. I think her songs are boring. I think that the musical part of the songs are boring. Like, I think she just uses the same like 4-chord progression for most of her songs. She looks boring. Like, I don't find her like an interesting or beautiful person particularly. She's not ugly, but I'm just like, okay, it's a blonde chick. This is all that I see. She doesn't have an interesting personality. She has no interesting story. Like, she became famous essentially because she wanted to become a pop star, I think. Like, she came from a rich family and she started taking vocal lessons and acting lessons in New York and decided she wanted to be like a country star. So her parents took her to Nashville and got her a deal, and then she was like manufactured into a country star, and then presumably they all realized that she would make more money if she mainstreamed more as a pop star. And like, people are insane about her. And when I say that, yeah, they'll tell me that I don't understand and that she's brilliant and she's so relatable, but also that, oh, why are you always tearing, like, or not always, but like, you're just, people who criticize Taylor Swift are accused of tearing down women. So people just hate her because she's a successful woman. And why do people always hate on things that women like? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm a woman. I like things. I'm not just tearing down things that women like. You know, like, I'm not going around just attacking successful women. Like, I've never attacked Martha Stewart before. And like, you know, I don't know. And I find that even like a bit insulting. Like, oh, this is like a woman thing. This is like a girl thing. And so you have to support it because this is for women and you're a woman and you're a feminist. So you have to like be on board with it.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't. So, I mean, I can certainly relate. Like the experience that you're describing, like, is a familiar. It used to be predominantly adolescent experience of. I mean, there's like a psychology term for it. I think it's called maladaptive daydreaming, which is something that, yeah, mostly like children and adolescents do, where you're like fantasizing about like a crush or like a celebrity, and you're like projecting lots of stories about someone that you don't actually know. And it's not like inherently bad, but if you continue to do this like as an adult, like for a lot of time, like you could see how you might run into like relationship issues. Like, for example, you might be disconnected with a community that's right in front of you, or a person who's wanting to connect because you're so fixated on this like fantasy of this celeb or this crush of a person who you don't even know, maybe they're also a celebrity, or maybe you saw them once, like 7 years ago, or like whatever. So I'm more interested in like, yeah, what happened, like all the time that the Swifties, spend in that state.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? What is the function of like what are the potential negative consequences of a celebrity taking that much of your mental space, or like financial means, whether that's buying her merch or going to her concerts, and like it seems like it reminds me of like we talked about last week. It's like, in the absence of religion,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is what can happen.
Right. Because this kind of thing does end up feeling like a religion. They have their own name for themselves. And part of it, Taylor Swift cultivates intentionally. Like, I learned that she puts like kind of Easter eggs in her lyrics. Like, she puts all these little clues for her fans to seek out and find. So her fans will obsessively do all this detective work trying to find these clues and figure out what the clues mean. And so it makes them obsess over her, and it makes them obsess over her music and her lyrics and things like that. But it also serves the function of making them feel connected to her, so they feel like they are closer to her or know her better than they actually do, which of course is not at all. So that sort of, I was like, that I found that a little bit weird, because I'm sure that on one hand it could be argued, oh, well, she's really good at connecting with fans. She really knows how to connect with her fans. Like, she knows how important her fans are to her career. Of course, I'm sure she wouldn't describe it necessarily in that way. She'd say they were important to her. But, specifically sort of cultivating a really obsessive fan base that has to fixate on every single little thing that you do, I think is creepy a little bit.
Yeah, I like, with any fixation, I'm just like, it's just a lot of energy to be put in that space. Like, I wonder what would happen when that space was opened up. And like, well, I think we'll like get into that with like mind control and hypnosis and stuff, like, in this conversation. But I always wonder, like, yeah, what is behind that? Okay, like a person who spends like 2 hours a day consuming like Swift media, like, what would those 2 hours look like? I mean, you could like say that about anything. It's like, well, if you weren't like getting stoned for 2 hours a day every day, like, what would open up? It's like,
Yeah, or if you weren't like gaming for 2 hours a day,
Yeah.
which I would suggest that you definitely don't do.
Yeah.
Like, what else could you do, or what would happen in your life with that space opened up? Yeah.
For sure. But I definitely have a judgment of adults who have this, what I think like should be reserved for like children or like adolescent projections and fixations on celebs and people. Like, we don't.
Well, and
No.
especially because girls are going to do the thing that makes them feel like they're fitting in with their peer group. So if their peer group is like really into Taylor Swift and obsessing over Taylor Swift, and everybody's talking about what's going on, then I totally get why girls would want to be in on that. Like, it would help you with your friend group and feel like you're bonding, feel like you're part of something, not feel left out. And that's really, really important when you're young, when you're a teenager, et cetera, et cetera. But adults spending $3,000 on tickets to a Taylor Swift concert, I mean, spend your money on whatever you want, but it seems crazy. Like, like the amount of money that people have spent on tickets to her concerts seems, and the emotions attached to that, people trying to get tickets. Like, I think like just like your regular crappy tickets can be like $500, and then if you get floor seats, they're somewhere between like 1,500 or 3,000. I'm sure more if you're buying them online or something like that from somebody who's reselling them.
Yeah. Or sorry, we're doing.
No, go on.
The like what you just mentioned about the like, you're alluding to like a like an emotional attachment to like what she does or doesn't do. So that could include her dating someone and then like a corresponding physical response in the body where there's like a lot of cortisol and you're like, or a lot of adrenaline. It's like, what did she do? Where did she go? Who is she dating? Like that's where I feel like it becomes like almost like an abusive relationship. Like why is the chemistry of your body changing so drastically for someone that you do not know?
Right. And that is what's happening, not to teenage girls necessarily, but to adults, because people are obsessing over her being at these football games.
Right.
Right? Like that people are talking about or complaining about the camera panning to Taylor Swift at these football games instead of anything else, like the game, for example, or the players, or I don't know. I don't watch football. So whatever else the camera's normally on, which presumably is not just like celebrities in the audience doing nothing or dancing or whatever, and just like people freaking out over it, people freaking out over her relationship with this football player, which again seems like completely uninteresting to me. And you know, I'm not above celebrity gossip. Like I actually am totally interested in celebrity gossip sometimes, depending on the celebrity. You know, like I watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians, although I've given that up this year because it got boring and I just can't stand all the surrogacy stuff. Like I just hate them so much now that I'm like, I don't even want to be engaged with you anymore.
Yeah, that was the tipping point for me. The surrogacy stuff was also
like I was just like, you guys are so evil and like checked out from the real world that you're barely even human at this point. And just the celebrities advertising for surrogacy, Paris Hilton too. I'm just like, I'm never going to like you or respect you unless you sort of come around and start being honest about this baby buying practice that you're advertising to people. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wonder if it's harder nowadays for parents to put a lid on this kind of behavior or obsession from their kids because of the internet. Because like when I was a kid, I remembered my dad wouldn't really let me obsess over pop stars or celebrity. Like we didn't have cable at home even, so I couldn't get super involved with what my other friends were maybe watching on TV. But also, you know, he basically told me that pop star was crap. Like pop music was crap. He was like, this is all crap. It's not real music. It's manufactured. And he wasn't just being like a grouchy old man, because he was like exposing me to really good music. And we had like a huge record collection at home. It was just that he was saying like, this isn't even real. Like he was like this group, like New Kids on the Block. He was like, they were just like plucked and stuck together and somebody produced them and put them out in the world. Like this isn't, you know, this isn't authentic in any way, really. And it's not, there's no longevity to this for a reason. So I think I grew up with that kind of approach to music. But, you know, my parents would have never spent a ton of money on tickets. You know, I don't remember how much concert tickets cost at that time, but, you know, whatever $500 would have been at that time so that I could go see some stupid manufactured, phony, overproduced pop star. They would have never, ever supported that, even if they could afford it, which they couldn't because we were working class. So I sort of wonder like why so many parents are, I feel bad being judgmental of parents because I'm not a parent. So I don't really feel like it's my place because I'm not in that situation. But I do feel like I remember I was a child with parents. I remember I had parents and I remember what they were like. Not that they were perfect by any means, but
I think it's, I went to Backstreet Boys concert. I went to a Spice Girls concert. It was like,
oh, that would have been fun.
I remember like every second of it. It was like the time of my freaking life. But that's also distinct from like developing, like then becoming an adult and releasing the fixation on those celebrities. Like I grew up and I was like, oh, like I won't just like be invited on stage at a Backstreet Boy concert and like
Right.
get a bouquet of roses. Like my fantasies are like we're all like
He's not going to bring me up on stage and kick me in front of millions.
That would be illegal. First of all,
right.
But yeah, like my adolescent like fantasies were shattered, you know, and like that's part of growing up, like in some respect, like so I just feel that there is okay, where it gets weird for me with the celebrity obsession is when like your yeah, like I mentioned earlier, like the chemistry of your body starts to like alter so drastically when they do something or don't do something. And that's distinct from like a cultural leader or like a religious leader who actually has like influence over like your daily life, or like of course someone you know, like someone who's in your community. Like it would make sense to have a physical response to like the president of your country being assassinated. Like that makes sense because that has a trickle down like effect ostensibly like on your life, right? Maybe it could be argued that for some celebrities that would also be the case, but it's like being on that roller coaster. I don't know, it just seems like it takes up a lot of time, but I don't know, I've never really like reaped the rewards of the joy of experiencing Taylor Swift. And so I think what a Swiftie would say is like, her music helped me out of a dark time, or like she's an inspirational songwriter for me, or she like paved the way for my passion for music, or like I see myself in her. And like, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of good that's come out of it too. But I think, yeah, for adults to be in that, like, I think like frozen adolescent maladaptive daydreaming, if we want to get like all DSM about it, like it's
well, I like that because it
strange.
makes me think of what, like, I feel like the culmination of this maladaptive daydreaming thing would perhaps be stalking, like celebrity stalkers, people who end up, you know, showing up in celebrities' homes and things like that because they get so obsessed and they develop this relationship with these celebrities in their heads, and they actually think that they're in a relationship with these people, and it's quite scary. Is that sort of along the same lines?
Yeah, I would say so. Sorry, I got distracted by some of the comments.
Oh. Well, Madeline thankfully told me that I can have an opinion on parenting. She says, I think women without children offer great perspective and wisdom. And like you said, you remember being a child, which is good because I'm probably never going to stop having an opinion on parenting, even though I think I just expect the response to be like, you don't understand. And it's true. I totally don't understand how challenging it would be, for example, to try to curb your kid's Taylor Swift obsession or desire for a smartphone or whatever it is. That would be hard.
Yeah.
And I think, the main thing that they say is that she's relatable. Like she, you know, her lyrics are speaking to all of these girls, which she mostly writes like kind of like breakup-y, heartbroken love / revenge songs. Like she's really often angry at men who have left her, or she feels betrayed or brokenhearted by, which, you know, when I was in high school, when I was a teenager, I couldn't think of any other topic to write poems on except for the boys that I was in love with or felt heartbroken or hurt by. So, okay, fine if you're 13. Beyond that, I'm not that interested in hearing from adults who claim that she's some kind of lyrical genius.
I'm not against her being a lyrical genius. What I feel like is weird is the amount of energy and time on any one person you don't know, any one celebrity, any one projection. It's just like, what are you avoiding?
Yeah, I mean, it's all bad. It's all weird when people are like actually obsessed with celebrity. Like it's one thing, you know, I think to like talk about whatever is going on in reality TV because it's like it's kind of fun and entertaining, but a genuine kind of fixation and obsession, like you say, when the chemicals in your body change and you get actually really kind of emotionally affected by what this pop star or Kardashian is doing. I mean, really, like that. Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably you're kind of on to something there when you say, like, what are you avoiding? Because that feels like you're putting a lot of energy into something that's totally irrelevant to your life and doesn't do anything for you and doesn't really make any sense, like almost like a form of escapism, I suppose, or addiction even.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, okay, I have, when you think, okay, so when you think about something like hypnosis, especially in the past, I'm sure that people are starting to better understand hypnosis now and hypnotherapy. I think hypnotherapy has become like a pretty popular thing. I know a lot of people who've tried it and a lot of people who do self-hypnosis for things like, you're sleeping and you wake up and you have anxiety and you can't go back to sleep, those kinds of things. The first time I ever heard about somebody doing hypnotherapy was a friend of mine who was trying to quit smoking. This was probably like 15 years ago, at least. It was quite a long time ago. And she was trying to lose weight, and it seems like it was the only thing that worked. Like, I feel like she'd tried a lot of different things and nothing worked. And I don't quite understand how it worked, but she obviously also changed her habits. Like, she started eating differently and exercising and so on and so forth. But she did manage to quit smoking cigarettes through doing hypnotherapy. So I mean, tell me how this works. Like, what is hypnosis? How does this work? And then how can it help to, I know that, we can start by talking about how it can help you to kind of change habits or change behaviors. But then I was also listening to Huberman's podcast, and he was interviewing a hypnotherapist or whatever. And it's really useful for things like trauma and phobias. Like, he was talking about a woman who was really afraid of dogs, or if you're afraid of flying, all sorts of things, which seems crazy to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, in simplest terms, hypnosis is a trance. And so we are living under many trances at all times. So, in a formal hypnosis session, like in what you're describing, like something that a hypnotherapist or someone like myself who's a hypnotist would do, is just a formal container to elicit a different kind of trance. So that could be like coming out of a trance of unworthiness and into a trance of worthiness, higher self-worth.
Can I interrupt you for just, what's a trance? What does that mean?
So a trance is an altered state of consciousness.
Okay.
So, you could also think of a trance as a set of beliefs that you have. They're unconscious.
Taylor Swift is a genius.
Yes, she is. That is an unconscious belief. Yeah. Yeah. Trance, not trans. That's hysterical. Someone commented.
Same.
So, it's like hypnosis, you're going to an altered state of consciousness, right? So it's a concentrated kind of period of time, right, where your mind is being directed and programmed to occupy a more, beneficial or helpful trance. This is if we're using hypnosis for, healing and change, like you described for phobias or quitting smoking. And so there are a number of ways that this can be done. I've, been able to accomplish effects in with my clients from, storytelling. Right. So I could suggest something to you and tell you a story without, asking you to close your eyes and take deep breaths. So there are many ways to like interrupt patterns. So changing your mind. So thinking one thing is true on an unconscious level to believing that something else is true. So
Would it be, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, I guess, like if you had a phobia, you're deathly afraid of dogs, and you were like, I don't know what, I'm assuming that if you're afraid of dogs, you would be scared of the dog attacking you and hurting you and maybe killing you. So would the change be that you would start to believe that the dog was safe, or like what would that look like?
Well, the practice there would be to rebuild like trust in yourself around dogs. So not to believe that all dogs are safe, because that's just not true, right? Or that a dog would never bite you or never attack you. But the practice there, you know, in that case, I would imagine that there is some early childhood event where the person was attacked by a dog, or, you know, consumed a lot of media of dogs attacking humans, or perhaps had a parent who had kind of an irrational fear of dogs for whatever reason, and therefore internalized, you know, fear of dogs. So I would first try to get to like the origin event. Same with fear of heights. Like, did you fall off a bunk bed when you were 4?
That's interesting because I have a fear of heights. I mean, I don't think I have any genuine actual phobias, but I really, really hate heights, and I got vertigo. Like, even like I wouldn't go up to the top of a ladder even. I don't want to look out of windows if they're really high up, or balconies. I don't like high rises. I definitely don't want to look out of the window on a plane, and I get really angry when people open the windows. And sometimes they tell you to open the windows. Sometimes people just open them and they're looking out, and I can see it out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?
Right. Like, and so fear of heights is like something that we all have. Like, that's evolutionarily. Like, we know that if we are if we jump off a cliff, like, it's not going to be good. Or if we're like dancing recklessly on the edge of a cliff, like, we have that internal knowing of like, we're not birds. We don't fly.
Megan in the
Right?
comments just said she loves heights.
Okay, she gets
How
like,
did she evolve?
I don't know, you know? And it's like, but then you also have people who take too many risks, you know, who end up in kind of who are more inclined to high risk behavior.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Who
people
don't
who
have
love
to do it.
skydiving.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's like I wouldn't say they have some kind of like psychological disorder because they like skydiving, but I would be interested in the pursuit of like super super high adrenaline experiences. I'd be curious about the inclination to like feel so intensely, because that's like a really extreme yeah, it's an extreme thing to do, especially if it's on like a regular basis. So yeah, so with any like phobia, it's just like a different flavor. So like like hypnosis as a method for changing minds, it doesn't really matter what the thing is. People say, well, do you do asthma? Do you do fear of heights? Do you do chewing tobacco? It's like, yes, because it's not really about the particular flavor of thing. It's just about uncovering like the origin conflict, like if that can be found, you know, like falling off the bunk bed or getting bitten by a dog when you were 4, and then moving into like a reprogram. So if you've ever, you know, kind of like a stereotypical environment, you might see if you've ever seen like stage hypnosis, you'll see a guy like swinging a, you know, like a small marble, and like he's asking for your attention, and that's to calm, you know, and distract the conscious mind to go into a more relaxed state, and to create kind of a confusion. And when you have that confusion, you just grasp onto whatever's there. You're grasping for the nearest suggestion when there's like that severe of like a pattern interruption.
So what's happening when, you know, I remember in high school, they would bring hypnotists in and they would hypnotize some people on stage, and somebody would like cluck like a chicken every time you said blah. Like, how does that work? That seemed, I just always thought, I never tried it, but I was like, that would never happen to me. Like, I could not imagine. And I'm not even sure if it's real or not.
Okay, so this is the best way I can explain it. And I should just like preface this by saying that I am not practiced in I was not trained in stage hypnosis. But what you're describing is a kind of it's called pattern interruption. And so there are ways to do this verbally and there are ways to do this physically. And typically with stage hypnosis, there is a physical cue. So, like a touch of a hand on their shoulder or a kind of a yank of their arm. And so, okay, so if you imagine like we have motor skills that are just like so programmed in us because they were repeated so many times, like handshake. So when someone sticks their hand out and wants to shake your hand, in the West, we would reach out and shake their hand, right? If if anything were to be different, like for example, if someone yanked your hand and touched the top of your arm in a way that you had never been touched before while going in for a handshake, this might have the effect of confusing you again because the motor, like just the pathways are like they're so primed to expect one thing that when something else happens, the mind can just be like, what the fuck? And then it will grasp for the nearest suggestion on what to do. That's how the handshake method, or what you see in sage hypnosis, where someone is tapped unexpectedly or their arm is yanked unexpectedly, that's what's happening. It's like, I've never had this sequence of events happen in the way that my motor skills are like oiled to operate.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming. And so you see them like put their head down. So that's what's happening in a stage hypnosis. It's a disruption of like just well-oiled like motor skills that we've agreed upon like culturally.
So is that okay? So I also learned today that there's something like there's a lot of people who are hypnotizable, and then there's like a third of people or something like that who aren't. Do you know what that's about? Like what's different about the person that is not easy to hypnotize versus the ones that are?
There are a couple explanations for this. So some hypnotists will say, all hypnosis is participatory. So there's nothing that I can do to someone else who doesn't want it to be done to them. I don't really agree with that because I know that I've been subjected to like all sorts of hypnotic spells that like I didn't sign up for, that I like didn't like don't want to participate in. So I actually don't believe that that's completely true. I think in a therapeutic setting it's true, perhaps because you are just by the nature of the setting, like they're consenting to being there. They're paying you to help facilitate something. So that is like, I think, yeah, that might be true in that. But if someone is unable to follow directions, so for example, like for children, like I've worked with a very small number of children who were like children of friends of mine who, who were dealing with issues like bedwetting and nail biting and just like things like that. And the most effective strategy for, a child, especially male children who like want to be moving all the time, is storytelling. Right. And this is so powerful. Like children are learning in school, ideally through storytelling. So I would say someone who has a difficult time following directions may resist more of like a guided hypnosis and might need a more creative approach. But I think like everyone is hypnotizable.
Okay, so if there was a kid who was wetting the bed, what would hypnotism look like for that kid in terms of addressing that problem? Is that something that happens? Like you can use hypnosis to stop a kid from wetting the bed?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, okay, think about it. Let's just like zoom out for a bit. Like, have you ever told yourself I need to wake up at 9:45, and you set an alarm for 9:45, and you somehow wake up at 9:44.
Right. I feel like usually I wake up like 45 minutes before my alarm clock because I'm so stressed about having to deal with an alarm clock going off because I hate them so much, but I see what you mean, yes.
So yeah, that's a part of it too, but the point of that, the result is that you're waking up at the appropriate time. You are not
Right.
the alarm is set so that you don't oversleep. The alarm
Right.
doesn't account for you waking up earlier than that, but you've given yourself a task. You've said to your, your unconscious, I need to wake up at this hour. And like, this is, I mean, I have this experience all the time, and I'll set the alarm anyway, and it never ends up going
Yeah,
off.
I guess you usually don't actually need the alarm. You usually wake up anyway.
Because you're giving yourself direction. You're giving yourself a direction to do something. And so a similar approach can be taken for bedwetting. I've also seen success with family. I've actually turned away a couple clients because I've also seen, like, I've had mothers come to me and say, my child's wetting the bed. Do you think hypnosis would be appropriate? And in some cases, I won't like I won't work with that family because it can be resolved in other ways. Like it can be like a territorial thing where the child can benefit for more one-on-one time. And so the bedwetting becomes like the only thing that they have that the other kids don't. And it requires special attention from mom. Right? So what happens when they stop bedwetting? Well, they don't get that special attention anymore. They don't get to see special people to help them with their special circumstance. And so I've seen it be resolved that way with just like more concentrated like attention for the child. Storytelling, and then like offering that that they have some agency over what happens, just like the alarm clock scenario.
And then it seems like what most people do is so they'll go see a hypnotherapist and they'll get like a tape, a recording.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get tapes anymore. And then they'll do self-hypnosis. I don't know if you always need a recording to do self-hypnosis or not, but how does that, like, how do you hypnotize yourself? Like, what do you do? Say you didn't have a recording and you were just doing it for yourself with your brain. What would that be? Or what would that consist of?
Yeah. So there are a couple different like metaphors and visualizations and relaxation techniques that people can do. Just depending on like what the issue is. There's something very simple called a progressive relaxation, where you just imagine like all the muscles in your body's gradually relaxing, starting at the top of your head, moving down to the tips of your toes. And when you feel numbness and tingling at the tips of your toes, you know that the relaxation is complete. Right. So you're guiding yourself. You could count down. It could be as simple as counting down from 100. Right. You're giving yourself a task. You're directing energy and awareness on something specific. Right. It's like you're turning your attention away from whatever the issue is, and you're redirecting and focusing on a visual, counting, recalling a feeling, a past experience. I was in a training group, and I was asked to volunteer. I was asked to. So I was in a training group for NLP and hypnosis, and this was a few months before I was scheduled to have a colonoscopy. And my trainer said, "Does anyone want to volunteer? Does anyone want to, for this exercise? Is anyone have an issue that they're working with?" And I said, "Well, I have this colonoscopy coming up. It's a couple months from now, so I don't know if this is going to have a lasting effect or what." And my trainer came up with this beautiful story of me being like a snake charmer, and everyone from the village coming to watch me do my snake charming. And a couple months later, had my unmedicated colonoscopy with no pain. And
do people usually go under for colonoscopies?
yes, so it's standard practice for people to go under anesthesia, like to the point where
And
you
you
like
not?
no, and I didn't, and I'm not like it's not unheard of to go without, but it's
Wow.
definitely not standard. To the point where they still charged me for anesthesia, and I had to call and I said I didn't get the anesthesia, and she goes, "Of course you did. Everybody gets." And I said, "No, you don't understand. Like I literally did not get the drugs. Please take off this $600 charge because it's not covered because I'm not over 50. I was like 26 at the time or something." Yeah, and
Crazy.
so it's anyway, there's a lot more to say about that, but okay, so I had that experience, and then for the actual procedure, I actually listened to some hypnobirthing tracks, which were just a familiar relaxation track that I had already listened to hundreds of times, having taught hypnobirthing and supported women hypnobirthing. So it had this like immediate effect of just like putting me at ease. And so during the actual procedure, I listened to some one called the Rainbow Relaxation, where it's just a progressive kind of relaxation track. And so yeah, so
Crazy.
self-hypnosis can be aided by particular tracks or music, but it can also be as simple as imagining all the muscles of your body, like relaxing and opening and becoming limp, and whatever the designated purpose is that circumstance.
So it's essentially like mind over matter. Is that sort of accurate? Like it's like that, like you can sort of, and like I've heard that you can use hypnosis for chronic pain and stuff like that also.
Yeah.
Like, or, that your mind can, I don't know. Yeah.
Whatever you tell your body to do, it will do.
That's
that for every thought, there is a corresponding physical reaction in the body. Earlier today, I was working with a couple, and we were doing some hypnobirthing methods, and we did what's called the silver glove of relaxation. You put on the silver glove of relaxation, and your hand goes numb, and anywhere you put the silver glove of relaxation on your body has the effect of numbing that part of your body. So if you bring it to your cheek will go numb, and your tongue will start to swell.
That's
right?
crazy.
This is really good for dental procedures.
Yeah. This is so interesting. I'm going to have to try this out. So in terms of something like a drug addiction or alcoholism, is the thing that would happen through hypnosis that you no longer have cravings? Or is it that you're telling yourself a different story?
I have not worked with an alcoholic. I've never worked with someone who said, "I'm an alcoholic. Can you help me not drink alcohol?" I've worked with plenty of smokers, chewing tobacco.
So that would be sort of similar. I mean, I don't think it's quite the same as alcoholism, but sure, like it's an addiction. It's a physical addiction. Well, and a mental addiction, psychological.
Yeah, I know it's definitely a thing. It's just not my specialty. But I know hypnotists who are also licensed psychotherapists who run rehabs and addiction centers who use hypnosis as like an integral part of their therapeutic process with their patients. So it's definitely a thing. I don't have experience with alcoholism, working with people who are alcoholics specifically, but I imagine it follows. Again, it's like the thing is not as important as the method. So, sorry, another way of saying that is that the method can be applied to many different things.
Right.
The only time I won't do a one-off session is for binge eating. Like for food, the approach that worked for me personally and has worked for my clients is a combination of like conscious mind sessions and hypnosis. Just because food you can't never eat again.
Yeah.
You can't banish it forever.
You can't just not have an appetite.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can like start to convert things. So like cigarettes can become like nasty cockroaches.
Okay.
The thought of even being near cigarette smoke can elicit nausea. Right? So you can program all of that in a session. I had I mean, I could not eat sweets for years after, like, when I stopped binge eating. Like the thought of sweets, like donuts and cake and ice cream, made me feel like kind of sick. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that was something that happened in hypnosis for me. Like I would have dreams where I'd like eaten like 200 donuts and I'd wake up still nauseous from that, because
Right,
that was
right.
my, like, I wasn't eating
Okay.
200 donuts. But so yeah, you can kind of things that are like reward, and you can reprogram them to be nasty cockroach.
Right, right, right. Megan said I went to a new gym today and I hadn't worked out in a while, so I'm going to be very sore tomorrow. I might need to try the silver glove, which is something that I was thinking about as you were talking, and as the question of things like pain came up. I was like, I wonder if I can stop complaining at the gym all the time.
Well,
Be like,
you're
I can't do anymore. I can't breathe. This hurts.
well, you don't want you like you also don't want to dissociate from the real sensations that you're having, and you're also just describing like a delayed muscle response, which is like a healthy it's like when a healthy muscle is doing its job and doing what it's meant to do, then it has a delayed muscle response. So like the date, I guess, like, yeah, we don't want to recommend, like, I'm not recommending complete dissociation, um but certainly, like, as an alternative to Oxycontin, yeah, I would say the silver glove of relaxation is great.
Totally. And what about like, okay, so the other thing that I was thinking about as I was thinking about this topic was mantras. So, and women do this a lot. And frankly, I've always found it a bit stupid. But people suggest these methods so often that I could be wrong. It is possible that I'm wrong, but things like, women putting a post-it note in their mirror that says, you are beautiful, or something even more like, what, I am valuable and worthy. Sorry, not you. I am beautiful, because you're saying it to yourself and you're trying to send yourself this message so that you believe it. I accept myself at this moment. I am valuable and worthy. And I think, I mean, part of the reason that I think that I've always thought that it was a bit stupid is because I think that I'm so cynical and sarcastic in some ways that saying something like that to myself, I would have a hard time taking seriously. The idea of telling myself something like, like if you're trying to do something, okay, let's use the gym example again. And I'm so tired, like I can't bike anymore, like I can't breathe, I just can't do it. And my trainer is like, go faster, push harder, keep going. And I'm like, I can't, I'm going to die, my legs are going to fall off. But if I were to tell myself, you can go faster, you can go farther, you have strong legs, I wonder if that would have an effect. And I wonder what you think about those kinds of mantras that women in particular might say to themselves. I am worthy. I am beautiful. Can you convince yourself that you're beautiful by repeating that mantra in the mirror every morning?
I think there definitely I think we're like way behind. I feel like there's been so much negative programming around self-worth and beauty, that yes, I think we need to do everything we can to reprogram positive thoughts. Like if eating disorders weren't a thing, if plastic surgery wasn't a thing, if this like mass consumption of makeup and like wasn't a thing, then I would say like, I don't know, I guess you don't have to spend your time like reinforcing self-confidence and self-worth, but I think, yeah, in a culture where we're
Right.
constantly told that we're not good enough, yeah, I think having as many repeating positive affirmations, having those sticky notes, I've totally done that. And
Does it work? Like, does it make you feel better?
I need the reminders. Yeah, mine don't say you are worthy, but like the things that I wanted to work on, which like at the time, okay, so I taught a class called content and confidence, and I
Mm-hmm.
actually showed a picture of uh a couple mantras that I had next to my bed for 2 years. And they were very simple. It was like one thing at a time. Be
Right. Okay.
consistent. You know so much. Like, and just reading that every night and seeing that
Mhm.
definitely I had an impact.
It might just be the common affirmations that bug me because I
Well,
don't feel like I need to tell myself that I'm beautiful because I don't really think about that very much. I'm not interested in like being like, I am beautiful. Like I don't have low self-worth. Not that I think
right.
that I'm so
That's why.
amazing looking. It's just not something I'm hyper focused on. But something like I'm trying to think of something that
Mhm.
would work for me, like
Something
telling
that
myself that I'm very productive and focused and I can get a lot done in one day or
or like
something.
when yeah, or like when women say to me all the time, "Oh, I'm just not a tech person. I'm just not a
Right.
tech person. I'm just not
Yeah.
a tech person." I'm like,
I'm not
"You
good at
think I
making money. I tell myself that all the time, and I have friends who say, "Stop telling yourself that. Say, like, money will." I don't know what the affirmation would be, but it would be the opposite of being like, "I'm never gonna have money," or "I'm never gonna make money," or "I'm not good at making money," or something like that, telling yourself that kind of story. I've never tried it because
yeah."
I'm also sort of like, "Okay, sure, if I tell myself I'm gonna make money, money's gonna appear," but it's
Well, it
like
doesn't quite work like that. It's just like it's
oh,
the
there
I
it
feel like
is.
it helps remove the block. So if I'm reading a thing that says every day, okay, one thing at a time, I'm not going to try to do 7 things at a time, then get overwhelmed and shut down
Mhm.
and say, maybe forget this whole business thing, forget this whole turfdom, like whatever, like I'm over it, like if I can just remind myself that, wow, I get more done when I do one thing at a time, I will get closer to my goal. So yeah, it's like you want to write the things, like create good word spells, for the things that feel sticky. So for you, you don't have a problem with feeling beautiful, so that's not going to resonate, and that feels like cliche to you, right? Because
Or
it's not.
valuable or worthy or
Yeah,
those things I think are the common woman
right,
suggestion things. So of course I'm like, okay, well, that's stupid.
totally. Yeah, and if you had just come out of a relationship where every day someone had said to you, you're not good enough,
Mm,
then wow, that message gets internalized. It gets internalized even when it's not explicit like that. It just we've I think most women have internalized that their bodies aren't good enough, they're not making enough money, they're not good enough mothers, fill in the blank.
right, right. And do you say these things to yourself out loud or do you just look at the message every day? How does that part work?
Okay, so the most powerful thing that I did with quitting binge eating, because I was a binge eater, and
Okay.
also preparing for my unmedicated colonoscopy and then like starting a business, was that, and I do this with clients all the time, like in hypnosis, where you imagine that the thing that you want has already happened.
Okay.
Right? You've already stopped. You are now a former binge eater, an ex binge eater, a non binge eater, a former binge eater, an ex binge eater, a non binge eater. And you see yourself going to the potluck. And there's a gazillion things you can eat, and you can notice that other people are loading up their plates with excessive food, but you only eat the amount that feels nourishing, that helps you feel strong, and then you leave the party and you go to bed without a stomach ache, right? You've already done the thing, and now you just look back and you see how you did it, right? So you
Mhm.
already have the thing you want. You've already accomplished the thing you want to accomplish. You already have quit the negative behavior that's taking up all your energy and time. And so now you just look back in history and you go, oh, that's how I did it.
Right.
So that's that I definitely, that is an internal process that I still yeah, it's something I do pretty regularly. And yeah, when I had the mantras, I don't think I said them out loud. I just had them right near my bed. So every morning it was the first thing I saw and the last thing I saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the money one has always been sort of interesting to me because I can't really get my head around it. But at the same time, for me personally, I mean, I'm like, and I think for my whole life, have had this mentality that was connected to the politics of our family, which is that there's your working class or you're the bourgeoisie, and that's how things go. And you can't really get out of that. Like, if you're rich, you're going to be rich. Your kids are going to be rich. If you're poor, you're going to be poor. This is how the system is set up. And there's certain things that you can expect and you can't expect. And I've been trying to obviously break away from that kinds of messaging because I am no longer a Marxist. And because we do live in, well, I'm in Mexico, so less so. The class division is a lot more ingrained and intense here than it is in Canada and America. But in Canada and America, class mobility does exist. It doesn't mean that it's not hard for people to escape the working class. And certainly people who come from a family with money have better options in terms of making more money. I think, you need money to make money is true in a lot of ways. You'll have better, easier access to property, things like that. But I still sort of bristle at, I saw actually this, I quote tweeted this tweet from Chris Williamson, who I know probably seems like I'm picking on these days, and I feel a bit bad because I don't not like him. Like, I still listen to his podcast and I like the podcast, but there's just, I think, some of his comments I'm not a fan of. I was obviously particularly triggered by his comments on prostitution and age gap relationships and women in general. But he tweeted this quote, sorry, I'm just trying to find it on my Twitter feed right now, from somebody who was not him, that was essentially saying that, like, I interpret it to be saying that being poor, like, you're staying poor by telling yourself certain things, certain stories, either about yourself or about the world. Oh, I found it. Okay. This is the quote. This is from someone named Alex Hormozy. How to stay poor. Avoid discomfort. Think the world is fair. Complain. Value the opinions of others over your own. Blame other people. Blame your circumstances. And I get it in some ways, but I also, at the same time, I was like, okay, well, I don't value the opinions of others more than my own. I definitely have not avoided discomfort. I don't think the world is fair. I do love complaining. That's true. Blame other people, blame your I mean, I blame my circumstances, I think, on some level, because I'm like, well, I don't have an inheritance. I don't have money in the bank. I don't have, like, you don't have my parents, like, putting a down payment on something, yada, yada, yada. But I've also, like, I've chosen a life intentionally that wasn't going to be financially lucrative. And I love my life. So I feel like I've prioritized certain things about my work and also about my lifestyle and, like, how I want to live every day and how I want to feel, that have, I haven't prioritized making money. I haven't prioritized getting rich. So my circumstances in most ways, I think, are my choice. But in general, like, I did sort of bristle at that kind of thing, because I was like, well, I mean, it's both things, because I think there is, like, a working class kind of poverty mentality for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's relevant if you have your basic needs met. Like, I wouldn't be suggesting that a woman who doesn't have, like, food, water, shelter, like one of those things, or not have all three of those things. I would never say to her, just put a couple mantras in your bag, like I wouldn't, that wouldn't be my first point of support. It would be, okay, how do we get your basic needs met? And then once you have that, okay, well, where is the mobility there? Like, what can you practice? Can you imagine yourself having food, water, and shelter? Or are you not even making yourself available to go to the places where they have food, water, shelter? Right? Like, so there is, I mean, I guess you could argue that there is still something there, but like, no, like consciousness raising tools and hypnosis and NLP, no, it's not something that is appropriate for everyone at all stage of life, especially not someone living in like I don't know, a township. It's like, it's just not appropriate. Like, you would be, again, focused on basic needs first. Survival, like, again. So
I mean, I suspect that when they were saying how to stay poor, they probably weren't meaning literally poor as in like living on the street. They probably meant not rich.
Yeah. So the not rich,
not well off.
So I think there's a lot of truth to, like, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I'm still working through money stuff all the time. The people who have a lot of money do bad things. Like, that was a story that I uncovered.
Oh yeah, all rich people are bad. All rich people are in some way unethical or immoral, and you can't be rich without doing bad things. That was my belief until well into adulthood.
Yeah, and
until
it's like
pretty recently, I would say. And that's probably still there even a little bit, and I have to be like, wait a minute, people with money and they're not bad people.
I know it doesn't, but here's the thing with the mind, like, it doesn't matter how much evidence you collect to know intellectually that it's not true. This is like core beliefs that like are ingrained in us through repetition for so many years, in most of us for like our formative years, that it is difficult to release that. And then that's the first step is awareness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the power of repetition is real. Like, and it's so funny what you realize as an adult is maybe not true because it was something that you were told over and over and over again as you were growing up. And you just assumed that it was true. Like, you didn't question it. And then at a certain point, hopefully you start to question these things and you're like, oh, this is just something somebody told me. This was never necessarily true. This was never necessarily rooted in fact or science, but I was told this as though it was the truth, as though it was a fact. And because, as an adult telling me this and I was a kid, I believe them. It's so funny when you start realizing these things. My uncle told me when I was a child that when we were playing hide and go seek, if I couldn't see him, he couldn't see me either. And I remember learning that wasn't true. And I was like, hey, because I did. I don't know how old I was. This must have been so long ago. This wasn't when I was like 12 or something. But yeah, I remember realizing, like, I was like, oh, that wasn't true. like
yeah,
okay,
shattered. Your whole world shattered.
I believed for so long that the way that you could tell which way north was where the mountains are, because in Vancouver, my dad told me this is how you're like, always know where north is, because north is where the mountains are.
That's really
but it's cute. Not true. And it's only in one, certain parts of Vancouver that's true.
Every day I'm learning things.
For so long, I was like, oh, that's not like all over the world. It's not always true. The north
That's
is
hysterical.
Where the mountains are.
That's hysterical. That is so funny.
This didn't have a majorly bad impact on my life, but
that's why you're lost all the time. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. I always walk in the wrong direction. I do very often walk in the wrong direction. But I think it was quite late I wasn't like an adult, but I think it was quite late in my life when I realized that wasn't true, to the point where I was like, I really should have figured this out sooner. That doesn't make any sense.
That's adorable. That's great. I love that. I love
But I
knowing
mean,
I'm like, Megan, which way to home? I don't know. Well, there's a mountain there.
never eat shredded wheat. Okay.
Never eat. I remember the first time I said that. I said that to my aunt, and she goes, "Why? I love shredded wheat. What's wrong with shredded wheat?" I was like, you know, people
I
eat shredded
still
wheat.
say that when I'm trying to figure out, like,
I do all the time.
Got it.
All the time.
But I mean, like, this obviously works on like a mass scale, like all the time in crazy ways. Like, and like I'm sure I'm trying to think of an example when that kind of thing worked on me, but just things like trust the science. Like you just start repeating these things, these mantras, trans women are women, and you don't stop saying them, and you don't question the mantras, and you don't think about what the mantras mean. I'm trying to think of some other examples of those kinds of things that people just keep repeating over. I mean, even things like believe women. Like I don't like mantras in general anymore. Like believe women. Like I understand the value of that statement because of course in so many cases of domestic abuse or sexual assault, women haven't been believed and aren't believed. Like it's still scary for women to come out and talk about abuse because some people are gonna not believe you and use it against you, and that's brutal. But like that it's like believe women, and at some point I was like, or the personal is political, and at some point I was like, wait, believe, like that's not, I don't think you should believe all women. Like women are not inherently moral or inherently all honest. Women are not inherently good. Like, and I think that's sort of one of those things that we learned in Me Too is that, a lot of these guys were sexual predators and a lot of them were not. And
Yeah,
people's lives got ruined over this believe women mantra.
Yeah, there's so many. Or like you can't have it all. That's one that's been coming up for me and that I've internalized. You can't have it all. Like when like if your life is divided into 5 categories, like when 3 out of the 5 are going well, you could never expect that the other 2 would also be going well. Because you can't have it all.
Something good is happening, so something bad must happen, or you must have to sacrifice a thing.
Or you got to sabotage it before it even gets good because you can't have it all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, yeah, there are so many. And these are like biblical. Like, I mean, all of the myths around childbirth, like pain around childbirth, strife around childbirth, like horror around childbirth, terror, fear, all of that is programming. That is all industry programming. There's so much. There's
the childbirth thing is interesting because I mean, my whole life I was like terrified of childbirth. I was like, I never want to do this. This seems like the worst, scariest thing in the entire world. And obviously a lot of women feel that way, and it's why they rely so heavily on the medical establishment to tell them what to do or do with their bodies what they decide is best, regardless of what the individual woman wants or knows. And I think the idea, I'm sure that childbirth is extremely painful for lots and lots of women, but I think the idea that it could not be like a horrific, traumatic, painful experience is really revolutionary to a lot of women as well.
Yeah, that's like the whole premise of hypnobirthing. And so I had my positive experience with hypnosis, and then I became a doula, and then I found out there was this thing called hypnobirthing, and I was like, awesome, sign me up. And so I taught the method for a couple years, and it basically just refutes the idea that pain is an inherent part of the birth process. So not to say that that no woman ever has pain in the process, but that it's not inherent. And that if we can eliminate the fear, if the woman can eliminate the fear of childbirth, then that reduces the like the fear, tension, pain cycle, right? The more you fear, the more the body tenses, the more pain you feel, right? Yeah, and it is totally revolutionary. And it was who was it? Was it Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth? No, Queen Victoria. I can't remember who popularized the use of chloroform, like chloroform in birth. So like anesthetic in birth was like was popularized by the Queen of England, and that it became like a status symbol. But before that, I mean, that was like, I think 1890s, I want to say. Shoot, I'm actually a little hazy on my childbirth history, but there's a wonderful little read for people who are interested in this topic, called Midwives, Nurses, and Witches, or Midwives, Witches, and Nurses. I can't remember.
Cool. I want to read that book.
It's
Tell
great.
me what it is. I'll try to, if you figure out what it is, send me the link, and then I'll put it down in the show notes for people who watch this later. I want to come back to it.
I've already packed it in a box, but it's sitting over there.
Oh, you're moving out.
Maybe I'm just organizing. I don't know.
We'll see where the universe takes you.
Queen Victoria, thank you. It was 1853.
Okay.
I was 3 decades late. Yeah. So, oh my God. Yeah. The negative programming around childbirth is one of the biggest tragedies to women, and it's probably had like the most, I mean, out of all the hypnosis, the most detrimental effects to humanity, because you're intercepting what should be and what is designed to be the most like powerful initiation for women, which is bringing forward life. I mean, it's nuts. It's so crazy. And this, I want to say something about.
And you're like knocking women out for it. Not that I'm saying, I mean, I'm not judging women who make that choice, because were I to have a baby, maybe I would make that. I have no idea what I would do.
Well, it's like, I mean, if I were being tortured in a hospital and poked and prodded and I had strangers sticking whole fists up my body, yeah, I would want to fucking check out. Like, that's torture. It's a torture chamber. I mean, I'm sorry, it is. I'm not sorry. I've witnessed, I mean, it's like, it's a complete torture chamber. Is it relevant in emergencies? Absolutely. Like, am I glad, there, medical technology exists for emergency situations? Of course. But we're talking about like the industrial, like birth,
That's like a revelation, I think, that is related to that, like the stories that we tell each other about what the medical establishment is for, what doctors are for, what hospitals are for. This is healthcare treatment, right? This is about your health. And then I realized very recently again that that's not true. Hospitals are for emergencies and surgeries, and doctors are for prescribing pills.
Yeah, legal
right?
drugs.
A doctor will diagnose you and give you a prescription. That's the whole point of going to the doctor. The doctor doesn't give you any information really about your health in a holistic way, or attempt really to resolve the root of that health problem or help you understand it better. I don't know that I've ever left the doctor's office understanding what's going on. I might know that I have eczema, or strep throat, a bladder infection. You need antibiotics.
I mean, we could push that a little bit, like I was told I believed that I had recurring ear infections, and in my adult life, I had the exact same sensations I had when I was told I had ear infections. And it turns out they weren't actually infections. And I was just being prescribed antibiotics like chronically when I was having like aching, and there was certainly something going on, but like, I mean, ear infection is a good example. It's like, in my experience, I was like overdiagnosed with ear infections and therefore took tons of antibiotics, and then having to take diflucan because the antibiotics disrupted my vaginal flora, and then I, yeast infection, and so they're just like giving you the diflucan like because they know you're going to get a yeast infection. I mean, it's just nuts. So I would even I've even questioned like, was that really an infection? I mean, I'm not against antibiotics, of course, that I would take them if I truly believed I had some kind of infection, but even the diagnoses,
I mean, that whole thing is interesting because especially for women, like it's like I've known so many women who've gotten into that cycle of getting UTIs and then getting antibiotics and then getting a yeast infection, and then it just happens over and over and over again, and it's like torture, and then it's destroying your health and your immune system at the same time because it's ruining your gut, and because then you're probably becoming immune to these antibiotics. They're not working as well. And the doctors don't offer you anything beyond that. That's what's offered to you if you get UTIs.
No, it's a disaster.
I mean, I don't know what to offer women either. I know that, like I don't know. You have to rebuild your gut flora and build up your immune system. And UTIs are torturous. So, of course, like you want to take antibiotics and get rid of it as soon as possible. But I mean, that was, I never for so long ever questioned that this was a healthcare system. Right?
There's so much there. How we've been targeted. I wanted to say something about I can't remember now. So if you believe in the like conspiracy of, women systematically being stripped of their innate birthing powers by the, modern obstetric system, and like when you hold like the sanctity of birth and that initiation and that being so nearly extinct or like destroyed, right? And I say that just based on the number of women who give birth in hospital versus home. And again, I also, women are not choosing hospital. Like birth was systematically like taken from us. So like getting lost in the conversation of like, well, it's an empowering choice for her. Like she chose that. It's like, wait. Like, let's just backtrack a bit and remember that birth was stolen from women. Modern obstetrics absorbed midwifery and medicalized it and made it licensed and all the things instead of pushing the midwives out to the fringes of society, because that would have been dangerous. That would have actually posed like a threat. So they just absorbed them into the system. Okay, so if you hold the belief that I hold, which is that that's like a conspiracy to keep, women down and strip women of their power, I carried this over
social power over themselves as individuals, bodily autonomy,
parenting power, like the ability to know what's best for their children, completely stripped in the prenatal process, in the birth and postpartum. All the experts telling you what you need to do, and the surveillance systems of the ultrasounds telling you what's going on rather than you going and saying, oh, I feel the baby's head here and I'm feeling the sensation here. The baby only hiccups like 3 times a week, and so I haven't felt movement for a couple hours, but I know everything's fine because this is my baby's pattern, instead of coming from a place of authority like that. And so if you carry it over to like the eating disorder stuff, like this was a huge turning point in my recovery for eating disorders, which was like, oh my God, this isn't like a me problem. This is like something nefarious is going on. Like how much of my thoughts and my thinking time, my energy spent on what to eat, what not to eat, how much to eat, did I eat too much, what am I going to eat next week, what am I going to do when I go to the potluck and I want to binge eat, what are blah 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 blah. Like, what could I be thinking about instead? Like, why do they want women to take, like, for us to spend all this energy and time obsessing over our bodies, food, right? And as soon as I like saw that as a kind of mind control, which I believe it to be, we could argue about like who's doing it to us, but an eating disorder is you're under like your own spell of mind control. It's really hard to get out of. But as soon as I saw it as like another kind of conspiracy against women and what we could be doing instead, like it was just like, whoa, like that was just like a kind of a shattering the pattern moment.
Sorry, the dogs are trying to play literally on me right now. Okay, thank you,
How
everybody.
rude.
Yeah, I mean, when I realized what had happened, which I learned through Mary Lou, of course, to midwives, I was just livid, you know. And that history has been practically erased, of course. I'm always trying to bring it up in terms of things like abortion. Midwives used to, you know, support women in their abortions. It was birth control. It wasn't invented by a man with a coat hanger in the 50s. It certainly was never, you know, like it wasn't a medical procedure you have to go do in the hospital, the doctor's office. I mean, the other thing I did want to just mention, because someone said it earlier, I think it was Helena, but I can't remember exactly now, was the sex work is work mantra when we were thinking about mantras, which is another good one because people, that mantra, like I remember fighting that mantra. I remember fighting the term sex work, you know, a decade ago or whatever. And a bunch of us were doing that, a bunch of feminists, abolitionists, is what they called themselves at that time. I think that term has sort of fallen out of favor. But they won. Like the sex work is work people won. Like everybody just refers to prostitutes, to prostituted women as sex workers, like without thinking. Like these people who aren't politicized in my day-to-day life are like, oh, well, sex workers. I'm like, what the fuck is a sex worker? Where did you get this? Who taught you this language? Totally mainstreamed. Well, sex work is work. Like, who are you? Why do you have an opinion on this? Like, are you an activist? Are you advocating to fully legalize prostitution? Because that's what that term and that mantra is about. That's activism. Are you doing pro pimp, pro brothel, pro trafficking, pro John activism? No, like these are just like normies who now, well, sex work is just a job like any other. Like, who told you that? Are you in a trance?
Yes.
Did you think about that? Did you think about that?
I mean, I didn't have the language to like, I didn't have the language for it. I knew, like, even if they want to say something else, like, what course in school or like what program or what cool hip organization is offering an alternative way of speaking about this stuff? Like, other than my masterclass library, me, and the women I host. But like, you know, it's like, where are people supposed to go to, you know, hear a different dialogue? It's so niche. I mean, obviously Feminist Current, Kaisa's book,
Kaisa Ekis Heckman's book is great. Yeah, Being and
oh
Being Bought.
Being and Being Bought. The split self, I think that's the tag, the
it's like prostitution, surrogacy, and the split self, something like that.
Oh my gosh, that book. Oh my God, she just it's so succinct. It's like everyone who struggles to articulate concerns or learn the history of like how did it become sex work, like how did it become constituted as like a labor, kind of working labor. Yeah, so
and who wants to know about the Nordic model and how that was implemented in Sweden, which most people don't know what the Nordic model is, and I tried to tell them at every chance I get, but she's done all the research on that as well.
Oh my gosh, I wish that was like, I wish every person could read that. So I think like, to be like, I don't know, as someone who had a discomfort, like when I was in my lib fem time, like I had even though I had a discomfort or coming out of that, like I didn't have the language, I didn't have the education. And so I wasn't about to go into a new group of people and say prostitute. It's just, I think
I
it's
do
just
it all the
more of
time.
it's just, well, now I do, but like, I didn't, I think people just don't have the education around, like you said, it's not like they're advocating on a legal level to decriminalize, or legalize prostitution. That's just what everyone calls it.
It's amazing how successful that, marketing campaign was.
It's
I just
not.
can't believe it, because it was a fringe thing. That whole debate was a fringe debate. The women who were calling themselves like abolitionists, the women who were advocating for the Nordic model versus the sex work people, the people who were advocating legalization. That was like in the blog wars in 2010, 2011. And then, I mean, it makes sense that they won. They have, the sex industry has a lot of power and money.
Yeah, and it was like on this upswing of like, you can't shame someone for choosing a gentle C-section. Like, you can't shame. It's like, we're not talking about individual choices here. We're talking about systems of power and industry. Like,
they had a lot of the mantras are good, right? Sex work is a good mantra because it harkens to the labor fight, right?
Yes.
Like, respect workers, worker rights. It was all attached to, we're going to, start sex work unions, power to the sex workers.
Free healthcare, STI testing. It's such a load of crap. The birth ones are Fed is best. That's one that was created by the formula. Fed is best.
What does that mean?
So instead of breast is best, which we're mammals, breast is best. Fed is best. So don't feel guilty about giving your kid formula that we created. Yeah. This was really popular when I was a doula. All birth is natural. All birth is natural. Again.
Interesting.
The only person who benefits from that is surgeons.
Right.
All birth is natural. This is, I remember getting into it with women on a Facebook group, and there was a doula in my organization who was posting photos of her C-sections, her planned C-sections, going, this is birth.
Right. And she thinks that it's some kind of empowering thing, and she's comforting herself. Like, I'm not, necessarily criticizing this person. I don't know what her motives were, what kind of person she's like. But I mean, I could see women doing that kind of thing. They don't want to feel ashamed, and maybe they do feel upset on the inside that happened to them, or that they made that choice. Maybe they feel regretful. I mean, that's attached to all those shame mantras. Like, don't slut shame, accusing women who are critical of prostitution and pornography of slut shaming, or of, shaming the prostituted women, or shaming the women in porn, which is, of course, not really what those arguments are about. But it's like, the reason that you would probably feel, or a large reason that you would feel sensitive about maybe that choice, to have a C-section, maybe to do porn, maybe to sell sex, whatever it is because you do wonder if you made the right choice, and maybe you do feel regretful, and maybe you feel traumatized by it, and you don't really want to think about that because it's done and it happened. So I understand the rejection of the shame thing.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. I mean, it's really intense. Like, when I think about the regret moms, the women who regret circumcising their newborn baby boys. I mean, like, it takes a lot of courage to be like, I made a mistake. I was duped. I was a victim of this industry.
And maybe it fucked me up.
Yeah. And like I was pressured by my pediatrician and didn't do my own research. And this is the consequence. Like it takes a lot of courage to be able to say that to yourself, admit it to yourself, and then to say it publicly. And the C-section thing that I was referring to was in the context of me criticizing what's called the Cesarean Awareness Month, which is just a marketing campaign for major abdominal surgeries. Like it's not about explaining the technical side of what happens in an emergency. It's like 1/3 of births end in major abdominal surgery in this country. Like we have a problem. Belly birth. It's not a mantra, but that was a euphemism. Belly birth is birth. Yeah, it was like I was criticizing the industry around it, and the first thing was the defense because of what you're saying. Like it is, yeah. I mean, it touches on probably the most sensitive thing possible. Is like, did I make the right choice for my child? It doesn't. I don't know if it gets more sensitive than that.
Yeah, like did this choice have negative health or psychological impacts on my child? Never mind on me.
And now I've built a whole career out of becoming the gentle C-section doula, and I teach women that they can play music and ask for a clear drape instead of a blue drape, and it makes the whole thing really empowering. And that's my shtick now. And so to admit that maybe this isn't the best thing for mammals, that would be very confronting, and you might lose a lot of money.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think we should probably log off soon. It's getting late for Isabella. But that was a great chat. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you for having me on and for talking to me about hypnosis. I had a great time.
Yes. And I linked to Kaisa Ekman's book in the live chat. But I just posted the Amazon link. But yeah, it's called Being and Being Bought. Somebody asked in the comments, prostitution, surrogacy, and the split self. And I mean, yeah, it's got a lot of good history and good analysis in there. I'm just reading the description, and it's saying drawing on Marxist and feminist analyses. So I was just about to say, don't be turned off by if there's political aspects you're turned off by. There's still good information in there. There's other books on prostitution too that are great. Rachel Moran's book, which is about her experiences in prostitution in Ireland, but she's also an advocate and knows a lot about the industry. I remember reading Kathleen Berry's book, which is so old now. That book is from,
I haven't read that one.
It's called Female Sexual Slavery. And that one she wrote in 1984. And I haven't read it in a long time, but I remember finding it a very good and useful, informative book. It's so funny how it's trying to seek out old actual feminist analysis is so hard now. It's just not there.
I mean, there's no more women's studies. I mean,
who's speaking, just the porns, who's speaking out about prostitution? There's a conversation now about porn, but it's mostly men being like, maybe this isn't so good for your dick, or your mental health. I don't want to brush them off because there are men who are actually doing some really good work around porn right now, like Benji Nolat and Daniel, I think I'm going to say his name, Prasimpe, Robert Jensen, blah, blah, blah. But that conversation is sort of happening more now, but the conversation around prostitution pushback is you hear it from Christians on the right sometimes, but that's almost it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciated, I invited Samantha Berg, who's based in Portland, who has the John Stompers website, which is amazing. She taught a class on my platform called Getting Real About Porn, Examining the Industry of Anti-Woman Propaganda. And she described porn as filmed prostitution, right? So it's like we were talking about porn, and it's
I
like
learned that from her too, way back
Yeah.
when. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, I
I
learned
think I learned
so
that
much from her in that.
I learned it from somebody.
Yeah, I learned so much from her in that, and so it is. I think also maybe we need to talk
mean,
more
that
about
might
that, like that it isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, there are distinctions, like a webcam porn. A woman who produces sexual content from the comfort of her home is distinct from a streetwalker, and there is the Venn diagram, and that we need to
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Now I'm like, did I hear that from her? Like, it might have been from like Andrea Dworkin or something like that even. But anyway, I mean, it's whoever I learned that from, it was like such a useful way to think about approaching pornography, approaching the industry, because of course one of the main ways that you get pushback when you try to challenge pornography is by saying, like, we can't ban it, we can't censor it, it's free expression, free speech, yada yada yada. Like, how can we possibly ban it? And I'm like, well, I don't think we can ban it. I'm not naive. But, it is, if you're paying somebody for sex acts, or you're paying them to perform sex acts, this person is being paid to have sex. It is prostitution. This is the same thing, the exchange of money for sex acts. And also, of course, we know how much trafficking happens in the porn industry. That's all interrelated. I know from speaking to so many prostituted women over the years that what they consider to be rapes now in retrospect were filmed, that they were turned into pornography against their will, without consenting. I don't know how many times you can repeat this, but you don't know what you're watching. You don't know if that woman or girl has consented.
Yeah.
You don't know how she feels about it. You don't know how she's going to feel about it next month or next year or in 10 years when it's still out there. She's not consenting then. But it's all interrelated. That, I think I learned most of that from ex-prostituted women. They were like, oh, it's all the same industry.
Yeah.
You're a prostitute, you're turned into pornography as well. So, on that bright note, I have some new affirmations that I'm interested in writing down and trying to post somewhere, because I'll probably feel stupid if I say them out loud. But Megan Wisdom posted 3 that were good, which I've probably lost in the live chat. But one of them was money flows to me in new and surprising ways every day. What were the other ones, Megan? I don't know if we'll have time for her to repost. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This has been fun and informative. Some places a little bit dark, but that's how these conversations go. And yeah, thanks again to Isabella. Isabella's links, if anyone wants to join her group coaching, right? Am I
got
getting
group
that?
coaching, got one-on-one coaching, hypnosis classes, all the things are all on
whosebodyisit.com and that link down there. And there was something you were going to send me a link for that I was going to post.
Oh, the midwives, witches, and nurses.
Okay.
You can find that. It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll send it to you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe before you log off so you don't miss our streams every week. We're here every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm always resentful every week because I don't ever get to say my time zone, but my time zone CST doesn't make sense because there's more than one CT, so you can't really use it. And most people are on Pacific or Eastern, so you're welcome, people in Pacific or Eastern.
I say CST.
Are we on the same time zone?
This is where it gets confusing.
Because we don't do daylight savings in Mexico anymore, so it switches at some point, but I don't remember when ever.
where I am in the world, it is almost 9 p.m.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, we are. Okay, we
8:56.
figured it out.
It's just that, yeah. It's so when I'm like, it's Isabella's bedtime.
It is.
My evening is only beginning.
Oh my god! Have you had dinner?
I haven't had dinner yet. I have to like make dinner and do some work.
No, it's too late. It's way too late.
Okay,
Got the
cool.
bright light. Okay, hey.
It was good to see everybody. I've probably forgotten to say something, but I hope that we'll see you next week. And me and Isabella will be here next week as well. I think Mary Lou's still in Florida next week, right?
Oh,
Or she might be in travel. Anyway, we'll be here. Somebody will be here.
someone will show up.
Okay, good night.